What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you my next 8 reviews and a whole lot of other stuff because September is going to be very busy, but this video is for September and October, and this is a video that I make every couple of months, typically just to kind of let people know what I've got going on and what the plan is, which is especially important right now as we move into the much busier times of the year for video game releases. But as I mentioned, September looks to be probably the single busiest month of the year thus far, not only for actual game releases, but also things like DLC and other titles I want to cover as well, with October looking a little bit on the lighter side. Now, first up, let's talk about what is in progress. I am currently working on Star Wars Outlaws. The full review of that will be out Friday. This should be going up Wednesday, so you'll see that video very shortly. I just have to finish up what I'm doing and then of course get it edited and everything. But Star Wars Outlaws actually marks the very last entry on the previous list of these, so it was of course time to get around to a new one, and with how busy September is now, made the most sense. But that is coming relatively soon. Now, the next section of this video, I want to mention some games that I'm honestly not sure if one of them will be a review or not, and the other definitely won't because it's early access. So first up, Space Marine 2. Launching technically on September 9th, it will be available on September 5th for people who pre-ordered the version that comes with early access. This is a game all about playing a Space Marine and unleashing hell upon tyrannid swarms, and mostly I'm going to be playing this one simply because I think it looks really cool, mostly because I've been getting into Warhammer 40k more as part of the Rogue Trader release that happened late last year in December, but admittedly, the type of game this isn't something I play a ton, and I'm not exactly sure how much this game is going to focus on multiplayer, or if just playing it by myself really feels like the full proper experience, if you want to put it that way. So there will be a video from me on this, I just don't know if I'll actually wind up reviewing it in full. Now, the other one is Greedfall 2. This is hitting early access over on Steam on September 24th. Now, I was a really big fan of Greedfall and a lot of other works from Spiders, the developer, and I'm looking forward to kind of seeing what they're doing with the sequel to their most successful game by far, Greedfall. It's my understanding that they kind of went a different way with combat this time around, and it'll be interesting to see the developments there, but more than anything, early access games are inherently not finished, that's the point, and so I don't really review them, though I will make a video on it just kind of covering it, and I'll likely follow it up until its actual release, so that is something to know. Now, next up, we have some DLC coming out in September as well. 2 of them in particular. We first have the DLC for Rogue Trader that I mentioned just a moment ago, and it is known as Void Shadows, which is going to be introducing a death cult that is in your ship, a new companion, 2 new archetypes, so some different ways to play the game, and I'm looking forward very much so to playing that one, especially since I haven't really played a ton of Rogue Trader since they made some pretty sweeping changes to like combat and some skills and stuff. So that stuff on top of the new archetypes and whatnot, I think will be a good time to jump back into it and check out and see what it's got going on. And then the other DLC I'm going to be playing is coming out on September 30th, and that is of course the Shattered Space DLC for Starfield. And in particular, this one focuses on House Varun, which was in the base game of course, but was more of a mystery than anything, and with this DLC focusing on what they're all about, which seems to include a lot of, let's say, more mind-bending elements than the base game really had, even though there was some of that there, sure. And you can expect a review on both of those DLCs in September as well. Which finally brings us to the full game releases that I plan on reviewing in September and October. Now, we are kicking it off with Sumerian 6, which is out on September 2nd, and this is a stealth tactics game. Now, I'm interested in this one in particular because a company that was making stealth tactic games, Me Games, went out of business, and it's an incredibly niche genre. And while that's honestly enough reason to get me to look at it on its own, this is also from a developer called Artificer, which made another game I really enjoyed, Showgunners, which was a great TRPG from last year. But that one is just right around the corner, so you won't have to wait too long to hear about that one from me, which then brings us to the middle of September. Now, technically, these are prior game releases in some ways, or at least 2 of them are, but they are finally coming to PC. Now, first up, we have Final Fantasy 16, and then GoW Ragnarok. Both of these see a PC release within days of each other, on the 17th and 19th, respectively. I've wanted to play both of these since they released, but honestly, if it's not on PC, I'm not checking it out. and I was happy to see both of those titles finally coming. And as usual, since these games are already out, I've heard some good and bad things here and there, but I'll decide all that for myself when I play them and go from there. Now, also in the middle of the month, right in between those two games, on the 18th, we have Enotria, The Last Song. This is a Souls-like based on Italian folklore that I've been keeping an eye on. I've checked out the demo and stuff previously if you follow the channel a whole bunch. And while I'm a big fan of just the overall aesthetic and the sort of play that's going on, it also has this interesting mechanic about swapping out your character's masks, which effectively allows you to change up your loadout on the fly in the middle of a fight, which I think will be interesting to play around with, but ultimately we will see, of course. Has potential to be interesting at least. And that finally brings us to some stuff releasing in October. Now first up we have Unknown 9 Awakening. This game puts us into a sort of alternate version of the world where a place called the Fold exists, and access to the Fold gives people what amounts to magic or special powers and stuff, and apparently this is based on an established world via comic books and whatnot. But other than that, I truthfully don't know much about it, and I kind of just want to play this to see if it's any good, because it certainly looks a bit interesting. Following on from that, though, we then have Flint, Treasure of Oblivion. This is an upcoming turn-based tactics game where you play as pirates, of course, set during the golden age of piracy. Now this seemingly quietly got a release date for October 24th, and it will apparently have, in addition to the turn-based tactics, also real-time exploration and a big focus on its original narrative. But honestly, just a TRPG that has nothing to do with anything but pirates was enough to sell me, so we will see how this one pans out in October. And then bringing up the rear on the very last day of October, we of course have Dragon Age Veilguard. Coming in with some, I would say, pretty big changes to the formula that may or may not pan out, we will certainly see, but one way or another, almost certainly going to be one of the most talked about game releases of the year, and I'm hoping it turns out well, as I really do love the Dragon Age world, but ultimately, I'm cautiously optimistic about it. And that finally brings me to my final entry. I'm going to be squeezing this in somewhere, and that is wrapping up Fable 3, which won't take me long. There's just so much new stuff going on right now, it's a little difficult to get to it. After I went through all the work of getting it to run over on PC with the Steam copy I just so happened to own from when the game was available on Steam, which it no longer is. And then following that review, I'll probably do a video just generally on the Fable trilogy and what I'd like to see from the Fable reboot coming in 2025, which is why I'm playing that trilogy again to begin with. But that'll be its own little fun thing along the way. Now, that I would say is just about everything that you can expect from September and October from my channel at the very least. Now, on the off chance I happen to have more time, I will of course try to fit in other games, but honestly my plate is pretty full, so I don't exactly have my hopes high for that. With that in mind, I certainly hope you're looking forward to all of these reviews, the DLCs, and all these other games, because I know I certainly am. It's always nice to actually have things to talk about after the summer months were pretty slow. Which naturally means to comment, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz, but regardless of any of that, truly, just thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.